In a world filled with challenges where each day brings its own share of stress and uncertainty, is it possible to reach a state where nothing can disturb your peace? Imagine moving through life, calm and composed, even in the face of adversity. This is not about detaching from life's experiences, but about cultivating an inner resilience that allows you to remain undisturbed by whatever life throws your way. Stoic philosophy, born over 2,000 years ago, offers profound insights that can guide us on this path. Stoicism is not just an ancient theory, it is a way of living that can genuinely transform how we face each day. Stoicism invites us to view the world through a different lens, encouraging us to ask ourselves meaningful questions. What if our peace wasn't dictated by external events, but by the strength within us and how we respond to them? What if we could face obstacles, not as burdens, but as tools for growth? Imagine if we could approach adversity, not as a source of stress, but as an opportunity for self-improvement. By embracing and practicing the principles of Stoicism, we learn to master our thoughts, find clarity amidst chaos, and cultivate a profound sense of inner peace that radiates outward. The path to unshakable calmness is built upon 10 fundamental principles, each one a step closer to mastering the art of inner tranquility. Let us explore each of these principles, and don't miss the final one, which reveals a powerful tool that ties all the other principles together. Now let us begin our journey step by step. The first principle: prioritize rationality over emotion. In moments of frustration or turmoil, how often do we act impulsively, allowing emotions to drive our decisions? This reaction is natural, yet Stoicism teaches us a different approach. Rationality, not emotion, is the anchor that keeps us steady in turbulent times. Instead of letting our feelings dictate our actions, we can learn to pause, think, and respond with a clear mind. As Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoic philosophers, taught, "The wise man builds his house upon the rock. This rock is reason, a foundation that no storm or misfortune can shake." Imagine a situation where someone criticizes your work. The immediate response might be defensiveness or even anger. But what if, instead of reacting, you paused and asked yourself, "Is there something I can learn from this feedback?" Stoicism teaches us that reason brings clarity, while emotions often cloud our judgment. Have you ever found yourself regretting words spoken in anger or actions driven by frustration? Consider a stressful day at work when everything seems to go wrong. Perhaps a project didn't meet expectations, or a colleague's behavior irritated you. In these moments, stress can easily take over. Yet Stoicism reminds us to pause, breathe, and ask, will getting upset help me solve this problem? Or would a calm and rational approach serve me better? More often than not, the answer is clear. A calm and rational mind is the most powerful ally. When practicing this principle, we do not dismiss our emotions, but learn to recognize them as temporary states that we can choose not to let dominate us. Emotions are not something to suppress, but to master. When reason leads the way, we weather the emotional storms with steadiness, without letting them derail our path. Mastering this principle takes patience. Ask yourself, how might you approach tomorrow differently if you paused before every response? Could you create a daily habit of reflecting on moments where reason could have shifted your reactions? When we make reason our default response, we transform situations that once disturbed us into mere learning experiences. As we master the first principle, we prepare ourselves for a deeper understanding. The second principle teaches us to recognize the disturbances we often create within our minds, sometimes without even realizing it. 2. Avoid self-created disturbances. Think about those times when we amplify our own suffering. The moments when we let minor annoyances spiral into bigger problems, or when we allow one small setback to ruin an entire day. In Stoicism, we are encouraged to recognize that many of our disturbances come not from external events, but from our perceptions and reactions to them. The Stoics taught that most of our suffering is optional, a result of our thoughts, not the actual reality. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that you have power over your mind, not over external events. Once we realize this, we reclaim our strength and peace, no longer allowing ourselves to be swept away by self-inflicted disturbances. The disturbances we create within ourselves do not only stem from external events, but often from how we choose to react and think about them. Stoicism teaches us that much of the suffering we endure is self-inflicted. We often magnify small annoyances, turning them into insurmountable issues, and it is these thoughts that begin to govern our emotions. When we recognize this, we can start to choose the right way to respond, avoiding unnecessary disturbances. Ask yourself, have you ever allowed a trivial event to become a major issue in your mind? Or perhaps a careless comment from someone hurt you, even though it wasn't meant to? Stoicism reminds us that peace does not come from controlling everything outside of us, but from mastering our thoughts and emotions. When we learn not to let external events dominate our minds, we find strength and freedom within ourselves. Pausing to ask whether our reaction is the best response for ourselves and others is a crucial first step. Instead of letting emotions dictate our actions, we can learn to view situations clearly with a calm mind. When we become aware of our thoughts and reactions, we start to control the peace within us. Think of a day in your life when everything seemed to go wrong. A project failed, a conversation didn't go as planned, or a colleague was frustrating. We can choose to view these moments as opportunities for growth, rather than letting them disturb our peace. Stoicism teaches that every difficulty can become a valuable lesson if we learn to face it with calm and wisdom. Learning to recognize and address self-created disturbances is a long process. But as you start getting used to pausing and reflecting before reacting, you will notice a clear difference. Stoicism is not just a theory, but a way of life, a tool to help us build peace from within. The third principle, cultivate inner peace. Inner peace is not about detachment or withdrawal from life, but about maintaining calmness despite the chaos around us. As Epictetus said, freedom is the highest goal in life, and it is achieved by disregarding what is beyond our control. Picture a clear lake deep in a forest. No matter how fierce the storm is above, the lake remains still, undisturbed. This is the image of inner peace. Even though life may be turbulent outside, if we maintain inner peace, we will approach every difficulty with calmness and clarity. This does not mean we become indifferent to life, but that we learn to differentiate between what we can control and what we cannot. When faced with a stressful situation, pause and ask yourself, is this something I can control? If so, find a calm way to address it. If not, let it go and focus on what you can influence. Stoicism reminds us that peace is only attainable when we accept what cannot be changed. We can find peace by living fully in the present moment, instead of worrying about the future or regretting the past. When we accept that every moment is precious, we begin to feel the tranquility of life itself. Take time each day to reflect and review what has happened. By practicing these moments of stillness, we can reconnect with ourselves and find peace within our souls. This is how Stoicism helps us develop an inner strength that cannot be shaken. Imagine a still lake deep within a forest. No matter how fierce the storm rages above, the lake remains undisturbed. This lake is a metaphor for inner peace. The world outside may be full of challenges and uncertainty, but if we maintain calmness within, nothing can shake us. When we learn to find peace from within, we also learn to face life's storms without being swept away. Inner peace does not come from avoiding difficulties or changing the circumstances around us, but from knowing how to confront and accept what is beyond our control. Stoicism encourages us to pause and ask ourselves, what in life is truly within our power to change? When we distinguish between what we can and cannot control, we unlock our inner strength and discover true freedom. Achieving inner peace through Stoicism does not require us to abandon everything or live a life without challenges. Rather, it teaches us to view life with clarity and wisdom. We cannot change what happens outside of us, but we can change how we respond and perceive those events. The key is realizing the power we hold in controlling our thoughts and emotions. Practicing Stoicism, therefore, is a continuous journey of self-control and self-awareness. It is not an easy path, but it is through daily effort that we build a peaceful and self-sufficient life. Inner peace is not a state of being still, but the ability to remain steady even when life continuously tests us. The next principle in Stoicism is recognizing the impermanence of everything in life. Life is always in motion, everything changes, and nothing stays the same. According to Stoic philosophy, this is not something to fear, but a truth to be embraced. These changes are an inevitable part of existence, and instead of resisting them, Stoicism encourages us to learn to welcome them. We often fear loss, whether it is losing a job, a relationship, or even a period of happiness in life. But Stoicism teaches us that change is natural, and holding on to what cannot be held only leads to unnecessary suffering. When we learn to accept the transience of everything, we will find that life becomes lighter, less burdensome, and less stressful. As Marcus Aurelius taught, the universe is change, and life is what our thoughts make of it. When we truly recognize that everything in life has its impermanence, we can stop worrying and begin to live fully in the present. By acknowledging impermanence, we learn to appreciate what we have right now. Reflect on the relationships, jobs, and emotions that you have had in the past. Everything has changed. Some things have been lost, while others shifted in ways you never expected. Stoicism encourages us to accept change and learn how to let go of things that cannot be held. So we are not bound by the past. We can only truly grow and be free when we learn to cherish and release what no longer serves us. These changes do not mean life lacks value, but rather they offer us opportunities to grow and learn. When we understand that everything has a cycle, we can begin to appreciate what we have without fearing its loss. Each moment is an opportunity to grow, to appreciate what is currently in front of us. Stoicism not only helps us cope with change, but teaches us to master our emotions in the face of it. Change is inevitable, but how we respond to and accept it determines the peace we find within ourselves. By embracing the impermanence of all things, we discover that life becomes lighter, and we more easily flow with the passage of time. When we understand that everything has its time, we begin to appreciate each moment. In fact, when we live with the awareness of impermanence, we learn to cherish what we have without clinging too tightly to it. This doesn't mean we should not invest in relationships, work, or goals, but it teaches us to let go when necessary, so we are not trapped in negative emotions or the fear of loss. Stoicism not only helps us understand that everything changes, but also teaches us that change brings opportunity. When we accept change, we also learn to see opportunity in every shift. What we once thought of as loss can actually become new opportunities for growth and exploration in life. We cannot live in a world where everything is fixed, unchanging. Life would become dull and lifeless if we could not adapt and change with time. It is the change itself that drives us forward, pushing us to learn, to evolve. Stoicism teaches us that peace is not the absence of change, but the ability to remain calm amidst it. The next principle in Stoicism is learning to let go of what cannot be changed. This does not mean abandoning responsibility or becoming indifferent. On the contrary, Stoicism encourages us to release what no longer serves our growth. By letting go of what we cannot control, we free ourselves from unnecessary burdens. Perhaps you are facing a loss or a change in your life. Do not let fear or anxiety take over. Remember, Stoicism is not about avoiding suffering, but about how we confront it with steadiness. Sometimes letting go of what cannot be changed is the only way to open up space for freedom and growth. When we learn to let go, we also learn to allow new opportunities to come into our lives. We are no longer bound by what is past, but are free to embrace what lies ahead. Stoicism teaches us that only when we let go of what cannot be changed can we truly enjoy and embrace life in the present. The next principle Stoicism offers is the practice of daily reflection. This means taking time to think about our actions and reactions, to examine our habits and perceptions. As Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoic philosophers, said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Daily reflection helps us understand ourselves better, recognize our weaknesses, and identify strengths we can cultivate. When we reflect on our actions, we can learn and grow each day. This practice is not about criticizing ourselves, but about identifying areas for improvement and building positive habits. Daily reflection also helps us realize that every day is valuable and an opportunity to do better. Every morning, remind yourself of your goals for the day, and each evening, take time to reflect on what you've accomplished and what you could do better tomorrow. This will help us gain a clearer perspective on our life's journey and our personal direction. Stoicism teaches us that to live a life of peace and freedom, we must constantly learn and grow. Each day is a lesson, and every day we can move closer to perfection in ourselves. The practice of reflection is an essential part of this journey, helping us not only to live, but to live with meaning and awareness. When we face challenges in life, Stoicism not only helps us maintain calmness, but also teaches us that every difficulty carries a lesson. Every hardship in life can become an opportunity for us to grow, to become stronger, more resilient, and wiser. We cannot change what happens, but we can change how we respond to it. Recognize that sometimes the most difficult events in life allow us to see ourselves more clearly. When faced with challenges, Stoicism encourages us to view them as tools for growth rather than as insurmountable obstacles. The shift in perspective will enable us to overcome difficulties without being overwhelmed by them. And when we accept that challenges are an inevitable part of life, we become better at maintaining inner peace. We will no longer allow trials or obstacles to shake the steadiness of our minds. This requires great patience, but that patience will bring us an unshakable strength. In Stoicism, patience is an essential virtue because only with patience can we face life with composure. When confronted with a challenge, do not let emotions take control. Let reason guide you and view the situation from a broader perspective. Only calm and reason can help us find the best solutions to life's problems. Stoicism teaches us that a broad and discerning perspective helps us recognize that everything in our life, from careers to relationships to our health, is temporary and subject to change. This reality is not something to fear, but rather something that encourages us to live fully with what we have in each and every moment. When we embrace the impermanence of all things, we learn to see change not as something bad, but as an essential part of life's cycle. We can choose to live with the flow of time rather than resist what cannot be changed. This brings us inner peace and freedom in life. Stoicism does not encourage us to avoid change, but teaches us how to adapt to it naturally and calmly. When you learn to let changes occur without disturbing your life, you will feel freer and less bound by what is beyond your control. Life is a continuous flow of changes, and what matters is how we learn to embrace and learn from those changes. When we open ourselves to life's uncertainties and changes, we will find peace within, no longer fearing or worrying about what we cannot control. By viewing life through the lens of Stoicism, we see that change is not our enemy, but a part of our journey of self-development. Every change is an opportunity for us to learn, to become wiser and more resilient. When we approach everything with gratitude, we will find peace even in the most challenging moments. Stoicism also teaches us that the truth of life is a blend of the temporary and the eternal. We must learn to appreciate the transient while also striving for the eternal values of wisdom, compassion, and patience. When we live with this balance, we will find life becomes lighter and more meaningful. Stoicism teaches us that everything in life, from our work and relationships to our health, is not permanent. We can do all that we can to protect what is valuable, but in the end, everything has its time to end. The important thing is not to be consumed by the fear of loss, but to learn how to live fully with what we have. Realizing that everything is temporary helps us approach life with more ease and clarity. We no longer need to be caught up in trying to hold on to what cannot be kept, but rather, we learn to appreciate each moment as it comes. When we let go of our attachment to the temporary, we free ourselves and can live more fully in the present. Practicing Stoicism does not mean we do not care or fail to invest ourselves in what we do. On the contrary, it teaches us to engage wholeheartedly with what is happening, but at the same time, we must recognize that nothing lasts forever. This is not about being irresponsible, but about living with balance, without letting fear or attachment diminish the value of the present moment. By understanding and accepting the temporality of everything, we find that life becomes lighter. When we live without being bound by what we cannot keep, we continue to grow and explore new aspects of life without being trapped in fear or anxiety about loss. Think of everything in life as a flowing river. We cannot stop the flow of time, but we can choose how to live in harmony with that flow, calmly and peacefully. When we understand that each phase of life has its own value, we no longer feel a sense of loss, but rather gratitude for what we have experienced. Stoicism encourages us to maintain a calm and steadfast attitude in every situation. When we learn to see life as an ongoing series of changes, we can face hardships without being defeated. Maintaining composure during challenging times is the key to overcoming any adversity. This doesn't mean that we won't feel pain or sadness when faced with loss. Stoicism teaches us that, no matter how difficult life becomes, we can remain centered and find peace in the midst of change. Peace is not the absence of difficulty, but the ability to remain composed in any circumstance. Remember, everything we have in this life is temporary, but inner peace and wisdom are eternal values we can nurture every day. By investing in our inner development, we create a lasting source of strength that nothing can shake. The truth is, living fully in the present is how we prepare for the future. Not by worrying or fearing it, but by living wisely and calmly in each moment. Stoicism teaches us that the future is unpredictable, but the peace within our souls can be built right now. As we learn to live with the awareness of impermanence and change, we become more adaptable, able to maintain inner peace in the face of any challenge. Stoicism is not just a philosophy, it is a way of life that truly helps us attain inner freedom and find peace in all circumstances. Stoicism not only helps us recognize the impermanence of life, but also teaches us how to face change actively and wisely. When we understand that everything can change, we no longer feel fear or anxiety about what is beyond our control. Instead, we learn to embrace change as a natural part of life, and from that, we grow and evolve. When faced with changes in life, Stoicism encourages us to find peace in those changes. Every change brings an opportunity for us to grow, to reassess the true values in life. We do not need to resist change, but rather find ways to adjust ourselves to what is coming. The important thing is that when life changes, we do not let those changes shake us, but instead we use them as opportunities to become stronger. Stoicism does not require us to live in comfort, but helps us find strength and resilience in the very difficulties and challenges we face. When we encounter hardship, Stoicism teaches us to view it as an integral part of our journey of self-growth. Sometimes it is in the most challenging moments that we find the most valuable lessons we could not have found in times of peace. We cannot avoid challenges, but we can choose how to respond to them with wisdom and calm. As we learn to accept change and hardship, we not only overcome challenges, but also develop a stronger, more resilient mind. Peace is not something easily attained, but it is through difficult times that Stoicism teaches us to build peace within ourselves, rather than letting external challenges disturb our minds. Stoicism teaches us that challenges only weaken us when we allow them to dominate our emotions and thoughts. When we learn not to be swept away by emotions, but instead remain steady in reason and calmness, we are able to face any challenge without feeling exhausted or discouraged. When change happens, remember that we are not victims of circumstance, but rather we decide how we will respond. Stoicism encourages us to be the masters of our own fate, not letting circumstances or emotions dictate our actions. Instead, we have the freedom to choose responses that are thoughtful and composed. Thus, every day is an opportunity to practice calmness and inner strength. Learn to face the changes and challenges in life with a steady mind, ready to adapt to any situation. When we view life through the lens of Stoicism, we see that everything in life can lead to growth if we approach it with wisdom and calm. Stoicism is not a philosophy to help us escape difficulty, but a tool to help us face difficulty with strength and resilience. When we learn to see every challenge as an opportunity, we no longer fear or worry about what life brings, but instead we find peace and joy in every moment. Finally, Stoicism teaches us that to live a full and peaceful life, we need to learn to let go of what cannot be changed, face challenges calmly, and accept change as a part of growth. True peace comes from within, from the ability to maintain composure and clarity in any situation. Stoicism not only helps us recognize the impermanence of life, but also teaches us how to face change with mindfulness and wisdom. We cannot control everything, but we can control how we respond to what happens. When we view every challenge as a natural part of the life flow, we realize that nothing can truly disturb our inner peace. Stoicism is not just a philosophy to deal with hardships. It is a tool to help us live fully in every moment. By understanding the temporary nature of everything, we learn to live more deeply, to appreciate what we have, and not to expect that everything must last forever. We learn to cherish each moment and live meaningfully in the present. When everything in life changes, Stoicism helps us understand that change is not our enemy. On the contrary, change is an opportunity for us to reinvent and grow. The changes we face may not be easy, but when we understand that they bring growth, we no longer fear or worry about what cannot be controlled. While life is always changing, Stoicism encourages us to maintain calm and steadfastness. When facing difficulties, instead of reacting hastily, we learn to pause and think carefully about our options. Composure in all situations is what Stoicism urges us to strive for, and this is what helps us face challenges without being overwhelmed. This does not mean that we should become indifferent or unconcerned with important matters in life. Stoicism teaches us that calmness is not apathy, but an understanding and acceptance that everything is subject to change. When we learn to live with calmness, we no longer feel anxious or stressed about what is beyond our control. Stoicism helps us focus on what is most important: self-control in our thoughts and actions. When we can control our thoughts and reactions, we have control over our lives. Instead of letting circumstances or emotions dictate our actions, Stoicism teaches us how to live purposefully and with clear direction. Each day is an opportunity for us to practice self-control and inner peace. When facing challenges, remember that we have the power to choose our responses. Stoicism encourages us to respond thoughtfully and calmly, not letting emotions dictate our decisions. This does not mean that we do not feel sadness, anger, or disappointment. Stoicism teaches us that emotions are a natural part of being human, but we are not slaves to them. We can choose not to let emotions cloud our reason and instead use reason to make wise and thoughtful decisions. When we learn to control our emotions and responses, we become stronger and more self-reliant. We no longer let external events disturb our mind or our life. Instead, we live with freedom and peace from within. Stoicism is not just a philosophy for facing life's challenges. It is a method for living a meaningful and fulfilled life. When we live with understanding and composure, we can face any challenge without feeling pressured or defeated. Stoicism teaches us that true peace comes from living in alignment with our nature and maintaining steadiness in all circumstances. Stoicism not only teaches us how to face difficulties, but also provides a method for us to act with mindfulness and purpose. Do not let life push you in directions you cannot control. Instead, always remember that each of our actions can stem from reason and clarity, guiding us in every situation. Ask yourself, does my action today truly reflect the values I wish to uphold? When we act with a focus on our goals and values, rather than simply reacting to external events, we will find inner peace. Stoicism teaches us that self-control is the key to maintaining calmness and clarity in all situations. One of the key principles of Stoicism is learning to distinguish between what we can control and what we cannot. Recognizing this difference helps us stop worrying about things beyond our control and instead focus on what we can master: our thoughts, reactions, and actions. When we focus on what we can control, we are no longer distracted by external factors. We find freedom in concentrating only on what we can change, instead of stressing over what we cannot influence. This helps us maintain peace and focus on our goals. In practice, every event and circumstance in life can be viewed from multiple perspectives. Stoicism encourages us to see every challenge as an opportunity for growth, rather than as an insurmountable obstacle. When we shift our perspective, we find that challenges become easier to face and less burdensome. Stoicism also teaches us how to deal with the unexpected and the unforeseen. Life is full of fluctuations, but instead of allowing them to cause fear or confusion, Stoicism encourages us to accept them with a calm mindset and to understand that everything happens for a reason. When we learn to embrace uncertainty, life becomes easier to navigate. Composure does not mean inaction, but rather acting with wisdom, free from emotional influence. Every decision in life requires careful consideration, and when we act with reason, we will always find the right path. This helps us live purposefully, aiming for lasting values. Stoicism teaches us that every action, even the smallest, can become an opportunity to cultivate calm and resilience. When we learn to view each moment as an opportunity to grow, we live a life filled with meaning and are not swept away by life's ups and downs. Ultimately, Stoicism helps us realize that peace does not come from avoiding challenges or difficulties, but from our ability to maintain composure and wisdom in difficult situations. It is during these times that we test and strengthen our inner strength. Stoicism is not just a philosophy for understanding life, but a way of living that helps us become stronger, more resilient, and capable of maintaining peace even in the most challenging circumstances. When we live with reason and clarity, we will find that life becomes more beautiful and meaningful every day. Stoicism not only helps us live a steady life, but also teaches us how to face life's final challenge: death. When we fully understand the impermanence of life, we learn to live each moment to its fullest and not let the fear of death cause panic or make us miss precious opportunities. Death is inevitable, but it is the calmness and preparedness within that truly matter. Instead of fearing it, Stoicism encourages us to face death as a natural part of the life cycle. We cannot control the time we have, but we can control how we live in the time given to us. When we accept that death is unavoidable, we no longer live in fear or anxiety, but embrace life with peace of mind and freedom. Thus, each day is an opportunity for us to live meaningfully, to do valuable things rather than worrying about things beyond our control. Stoicism teaches us that life is not about the amount of time we have, but the quality with which we live that time. When we live with the awareness of impermanence, we live more fully, appreciating each moment. Stoicism helps us develop an attitude of fearlessness, not fearing death, nor the challenges life may bring. When we understand that every challenge is an opportunity for growth, we no longer fear or feel threatened by what happens. Death is not the end, but a part of the eternal journey. And when we live with composure, we can embrace it without regret. Each day we can ask ourselves, have I lived fully today? We will realize that living fully does not mean living in regret or fear, but living with complete presence, not missing any opportunity to grow and evolve. Stoicism teaches us to live with purpose, and it is that purpose that will guide us through every challenge. The conclusion of the Stoic journey is the understanding of the freedom and inner peace that we can attain by living with reason and clarity. When we live with the awareness of life's impermanence and accept death as a part of the journey, we find that life becomes more meaningful and worth living than ever before.